It's been one of those days where the world seemed to change a little bit. For a year now, I've been telling you again and again to prepare to adopt the brace position for a second, even angrier Donald Trump presidency, threatening American democracy and NATO. And then the doddering Biden dropped out, and with Kamala Harris as the Democrats' candidate, a Trump win seemed a bit less likely. And then last night, in their first and perhaps their only live television debate, Harris clearly bested Trump. This might, or it might not, help her win the presidential election, but it was quite a moment. He has been such a politically dominant rhinoceros for so long. And she did it by getting under his skin, teasing him about the boring and small nature of his rallies. And with Trump, the word small, for whatever reason, tends to produce a defensive word salad. Have a listen.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Now, let's be very clear. Winning a debate and even getting a bump in the polls for a while is a long way from winning an election. There is some serious polling showing Trump still clearly ahead, although it is all very marginal. This presidential contest is going to be decided by a small number of voters, relatively speaking, in a small number of states, somewhere between 7 and 2, and with just one state, Pennsylvania, looking absolutely critical. It's agonizingly close, and yet this tiny difference will make all the difference to the United States and to the rest of the world. Let's just hear Kamala Harris on Trump's policy towards NATO, Russia, and Ukraine.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Now, that is only one of the big policy areas where the difference between the two candidates is enormous. She did well, but does it really tell us anything about the outcome of the election itself later in the year? However, almost all commentators have pointed out that Kamala Harris managed to avoid saying very much about economic policy or border policy, or indeed how she really differs in politics from Joe Biden. Who is she? That's going to be a big question for swing voters in the weeks ahead, and I'm going to talk about it now with Brian Brokaw, a long-time advisor and campaign manager from Kamala Harris. Very good to see you there, Mr. Brokaw. I'm sure you'd agree that she did very well in the debate, but also that there are huge policy areas that many American voters still do not understand from her.
I think. Yes. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now fine.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Look, last night was the performance of a lifetime for Kamala Harris. I was not exactly surprised because I've seen her throughout her career step up when it counts. But the reality is, to most of our nation, she's still a very new figure. She went from being the district attorney in San Francisco to being vice president of the United States of America within a span of 10 years. And that is a meteoric rise for anybody. And, her tenure as vice president has largely been seen through TikTok memes and Twitter parody. And I think the downside of that is the American people didn't get to actually know the Kamala Harris that really exists and is an extremely talented, serious elected official. But the upside is they are now seeing that. And people I talked to, I was hearing from friends last night, Republican friends, who said, I would have never voted for her. And after watching tonight, I'm seriously considering it. And so it's really telling that now people are actually getting to see her do what she does best.
That's absolutely fascinating. But for an awful lot of American voters, of course, inflation and the border and those kind of issues remain critical. And they don't really understand how Kamala Harris is going to differ from Biden on them. What would you say, from your knowledge of Kamala Harris, they can look forward to?
Well, look, I mean, she took over the ticket less than a month and a half ago. And this is much more like a snap election that you would have in the UK than we typically have here, where you have 2 years of laying out methodically your policy platforms and positions. She did just, I believe, yesterday put up the detailed policy platform on her campaign website. But more importantly, I think she is at the same time articulating a vision that is not just every little policy detail. She's doing that too, but really what's the direction that you want to lead our country down? And I think it is a challenge for any vice president to both build on some of the successes of the previous 3.5 years, because yes, she is the vice president under President Joe Biden, but also talk about how she's going to do things differently moving forward. And that's
what people still don't know. Sorry to interrupt, but that is what people still don't really understand.
Well, okay, but I think that is the challenge in front of her, and she is every day going to articulate those differences. And, you know, one of the things that I heard a lot over the previous year and a half was voters saying, I can't believe this is the choice we have between Donald Trump, who took us back, who is now on the general election ballot for the third consecutive time, and Joe Biden, who did a wonderful job leading our country at a time of crisis, but isn't necessarily the right guy for the future. Okay. So I think every day that's what she's doing. She's articulating those differences.
David Brokaw, thank you very much indeed. Really interesting. Thanks for joining LBC tonight. Let's hear next from one of the shrewdest American commentators, a former Republican speechwriter, including for President Bush the Elder, David Frum. David, very good to have you on the show as well. First of all, your kind of instinctive reaction to what happened last night.
It was crushing. It was not so much that Harris defeated Trump as that she opened the door and let his mania emerge. He had one job, which was to keep his control of himself, and she had one job, which was to drive him away from control of himself. He failed, she succeeded. We saw a shouting, screaming, crazy person who never had any plan other than to defend his own ego hurt.
Okay, possible reality check here. 2016, Hillary Clinton did so well in some of those contests, and the media, by and large, the liberal media was saying it's all over, and we know what happened. There is still a long way to go, and we know that swing voters are very worried about the economy. Sorry.
One of the things we do know what happened, one of the things that I think has really gotten into people's mind is that Donald Trump won this amazing victory in 2016. That was a fluke. Donald Trump in 2016 lost the popular vote by 3 million. He got 46% of the vote in 2016. Now, in the years from 2000 till now, there have been 6 presidential elections. There have been 12 major party candidates. If you stack them by share of the vote, Donald Trump in 2016 was second from the bottom, and Donald Trump from 2020 was third from the bottom. There has not been, in his entire presidency, there was not a day when in any reputable pollster, I mean, the Republican pollsters don't count, a reputable pollster, he had even 50% approval. So the problem is that there isn't this mass movement. There is a mass movement behind him, that's true, but there has never been an American majority behind him. There was not a day in his presidency. We had half the country with him. And he has always been at 46, 47% of the vote. His vulnerabilities are psychic and psychological. So when we say the public said this in 20, we have this artifact, this strange artifact of this 18th century electoral system. Trump lost by 3 million votes in 2016. And it just got put into this mulching machine, and this strange outcome of the Trump presidency emerged, and that's the law and that's the Constitution, and he was the winner under the rules. But the idea that people look at this and say, I want more of this shouting, crazy person talking about how black people eat animals. white people eat cats. That's not true. And
so David, you think this is a genuine turning point in their respective fortunes?
No, I don't. Actually, I don't. I think nothing has ever happened. I think my view of the Trump presidency is nothing has happened. He has been at 46% all the way through. He has been an architect of defeat upon defeat for his party. When he won office in 2017, Republicans had big majorities.
Coming up at 6.
In the House, Senate, and the states. 2018, he lost the House. 2020, he lost the presidency again. 2021, he lost the Senate. 2022, the Republicans had the worst down the ballot result for the out party since the 1930s. If he brings defeat upon defeat, and what he is the greatest marketer ever of crap products. He markets the worst vodka as good vodka, bad steaks as good steaks, defective real estate company as a great real estate company. And he's trying to market political failure as political success, but he has brought nothing to his party but failure upon failure upon failure. And now it looks like he will do it again. There's no turning point. It's just the revelation of what was always there.